Everything sucks.
Everything except the PlayStation 5 Pro.
Whatever you decide, let's make sure to get out of here first.
Come on, everybody's waiting in camp.
Chicago. Which means this family will go to hell and back for you.
Beautiful day, huh?
To talk shit on the internet, of course.
Come here.
It was completely dark. Empty. Not a star in the sky. All I heard was the wind and a few engines in the distance.
You need to somehow get rid of those drones.
I'm the drone. You deal with the Panzer.
Jesus Christ, Bobby! Navigation bus will eject the other side.
Really going for it.
This has been one hell of an intro to what has been one hell of an update for the PlayStation 5 Pro. It has been much anticipated for me. Now, when the PlayStation 5 Pro came out, it's $699 US. It came out, and the main game that I was impatiently awaiting for an update was Cyberpunk 2077, which I still hold to believe that this is the game of the generation. And when I say generation, I'm talking about console generation, alright? Because though this game was launched on PlayStation 4, we never got to see its full potential on the PlayStation 5 until about a year after its release. And then even more so, the PlayStation 5 Pro coming out. It seems that now that PSSR 2.0 has been unleashed into the public, that game developers are starting to flock towards the optimizations that PSSR 2.0 is capable of bringing to their game development cycle. And not only does this give developers the opportunity to bump up other graphical enhancements and features, this is actually straightforward improve the visual fidelity of the game itself. Obviously, AI upscaling has its quirks, right? Especially when trying to, basically compensate for a super low resolution internally. Cyberpunk does not compromise on any of these things, often optimizing to use a baseline of 1440p, even on its performance modes, which cannot be overlooked because with dynamic resolution scaling reaching up to native 4K, this thing is looking incredible. In fact, still performing at least 30 to 40% better than the base PlayStation 5 on performance mode in most cases, and that is without even factoring in the actual increase in resolution. So performance mode is looking good. Now, what you're seeing on the screen right here is a mix between the two ray tracing modes, one with the 60 frames per second and the other that caps at about 40 frames per second. Now, given that VRR is not something that I use on my equipment, so I'm just getting a more of a straight up experience, and that's perfectly fine. I recommend that if you have this on a PlayStation 5 Pro, you definitely want to play on a big screen TV, preferably a 4K TV, right? If you have one that goes up to 120 frames per second, then you're getting the absolute best experience because you could bump up the PS5 Pro's Ray Tracing Pro mode on Cyberpunk 2077 and you'll still get a solid 40 FPS, and it's pretty consistently 40 FPS, and that actually makes a big difference. Mind you, this is a single player game, it's not a multiplayer game, so you're not super pressured into having the greatest latency and all that kind of stuff. Now here's what I will say.
Take care.
It's true latency. We're not using frame jam. We're not using any extra shit. And that's what I really like about the PS5 Pro. It's taking advantage of the latest technology, and it's doing it in a more efficient way than when some of these pioneered technologies that came out 5 or 6 years ago were still in its infant stages. And what do I mean by that? If you're not aware, we know ray tracing has been around for quite some time on PC, specifically on NVIDIA's graphics cards. Now, during that time, DLSS was still in its earlier phases, DLSS 1 or 2 or maybe even 3. You would consider to be the earlier stages of DLSS. And so PlayStation 5 Pro is implementing a new technology, PSSR 2.0, which is very comparable to AMD's FSR 4.0. Okay, and this is one of their latest technologies. This has drastically improved a lot of different visual aspects to the game. Not just the ray tracing and the shadows that have been introduced, which I want to go into more detail possibly in some more videos. It's actually straight up improving the overall image. The fidelity of the game is super sharp. With the output, a final output of 4K resolution, and using PSSR 2.0 to get rid of any ghosting, any artifacts. Most of that is completely gone and is a thing of the past. The FSR 2.1 that was used for the initial next-gen iteration of Cyberpunk 2077 on consoles did have a lot of artifacting, a lot of dithering in the distance, a lot of textural imperfections, and PSSR 2.0, along with this particular update for the PlayStation 5 Pro, it knocks everything else out of the park, man. It absolutely destroys the competition. You're not supposed to compare this to PC, but people are doing that anyways. The real thing that you're supposed to be comparing this to is the Xbox Series X. Now, given that Xbox went ahead and released basically their mid-gen refresh at the beginning of the actual console's life cycle, you would have to compare the PS5 Pro to the Xbox Series X. And of course, when the Helix comes out, they're going to have their year or so of, I guess, a bit of an advantage in that respect, because then they'll be constantly trying to compare the PS5 Pro, right, to the Xbox Helix, which is going to have more PC-oriented layouts and probably its customization options, right, because it's basically just a PC anyways. So they're going to compare that to the PS5 Pro, and there may be a period of time where the PlayStation 6 has not launched yet, but Xbox Helix may actually have been released. This is probably looking to be something that launches next year. So if PlayStation decides to hold off, and that means that there's going to be a time frame where people are going to be making those comparisons left and right. So why would you not make those comparisons against Xbox right now when the console experience is best experience on PlayStation? Hands down. This game is on the Nintendo Switch 2. This game is on the Series S and the Series X. And when you compare it, there's really no comparison. This definitely puts the PlayStation 5 Pro in the conversation that forces it to go up against PC. Now, of course, the CPU does not necessarily put it on par with modern day CPUs that PCs often have, but the GPU capabilities is not old. People tend to forget that the PlayStation 5 Pro's GPU is a 4 nanometer juggernaut that is larger than the GPU in the base PlayStation 5. What they did over at Sony is they doubled down on the technology, giving you a newer node than even what was shown on the 50 series of RTX GPUs using 5 nanometer. Well, guess what? The PS5 Pro uses a 4 nanometer process. So, what does that mean? Basically more transistor density. Okay, what that also means, a larger GPU means just overall more, right? That's where they get that 67% increase in transistors. That's what gives you a raw performance boost. In fact, my recommendation for Sony for the PlayStation 6 is keep everything the same, just bring it down from 3 nanometer, which is what's projected to be used, down to 2 nanometer. It's moves like that that have made the PlayStation 5 Pro a hard-hitting console for the price that it came out with. Of course, a premium price at the time that it was launched. $700 seemed like quite a bit. In comparison to now, though, $900, $1,000. I mean, obviously, PCs can go well beyond $1,000 for a decent setup. If you try to buy a 4070 rig nowadays, you might be spending upwards of $2,000, maybe $2,500. You understand, for at least a pre-built. Now, what I'm going to say about this update, because I got to clear the air, it seems like a lot of people kind of been misled in the whole conversation. That actually started with Digital Foundry because supposedly, and this is new information that I just found out, they had an older build of this update. So with some of the areas where we're now seeing ray traced reflections, they were not able to see it. So that's what their preview actually showed, is that there were still screen space reflections in a lot of areas, particularly the water, which has been a big deal. People have been posting water all over Twitter, but it's not just about the fucking water, dude. It's the windows, it's the cars, it's glass, and that's something that's very prevalent all throughout Cyberpunk 2077. Also the lighting, that's a big deal. The lighting itself and the shadows. I believe that the shadows and lighting are bumped up to an even higher degree when you use the top setting on the PlayStation 5 Pro, given this update. In fact, CD Projekt Red has been very generous with a base resolution of 1440p. If they were to lower that a little bit more, perhaps maybe that would introduce some artifacts. I'm not sure. I haven't seen many artifacts as it is, but that would allow them to possibly bump up even more of those ray tracing features in a further update that might take even more advantage of the Pro's capabilities. And so we're seeing the latter half of this console generation really kicking into high gear. And I never had a doubt in my mind that eventually CD Projekt Red was going to do something special for the PlayStation 5 Pro. I was just not expecting it to take 2 years, but I feel like it actually does line up very well with the PSSR 2.0 update, because I feel like that's when CD Projekt Red was basically given everything that they needed to do a very, very successful update for this game that was going to make a really big difference. So given that that's the case, perhaps when this was being developed, it may actually have been developed with PSSR 1.0 in mind, and this may be why they go with the higher internal resolution. But bringing that down to 1200p or maybe even 1080p, and still allowing the PlayStation 5 Pro to use that AI upscaling, it could really introduce even more capabilities, more features, maybe more ray tracing, better shadows, possibly even higher FPS with those settings enabled. And I think that Cyberpunk is looking really good. I'm probably going to say this just for them to know, because there's one last, I guess you could say, hope for this game, is that they add a new game plus. Add a new game plus. Let us bring over our money. Let us bring over our weapons, our gear, and just enjoy the storyline again, because some people aren't going to actually go and replay the whole entire game again after having built their character up so long and getting everything that they need. I feel like New Game Plus would be absolutely perfect, and really just getting people engaged with the game all over again. This game obviously has sold tens of millions of copies, and I expect that the sequel is going to be shaping up to be absolutely amazing. It'll definitely launch on the PlayStation 5. But what it's going to look like on PS6, who knows? It's going to look great. I mean, as far as Unreal Engine 5 goes, the PSSR 2.0 update is really starting to make these games look good on Unreal Engine 5. So I'm really looking at this with optimism as far as like what the rest of this generation is going to be, and then the cross-gen capabilities going into the next gen. PSSR 2.0 is just in the catbird seat to really give Sony their own tool set, their own basically feature set that they can introduce that can innovate, because Sony's always looking to innovate. That's one thing that they've done in every endeavor, whether it be CDs to DVDs to Blu-rays, whether it have been on the Sony Xperia cell phone using a 4K 120 hertz screen on for so long. You know, just always looking to innovate in certain ways, right? And PlayStation's no exception. Their research department is going to be looking at the technologies that are going to make the most sense for televisions. But I would argue that I think the PS6 could benefit from having a DisplayPort as a secondary option, just to bring over some adopters that are going to be coming from PC, because I think that that's something that is definitely doable. Bringing people over from PC for dedicated gaming hardware that isn't bullshitting with anything else going on in the background, with unified RAM that could probably go beyond DDR6, maybe even DDR7, going upwards of 30 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, Unreal Engine 5 games are going to run really good on the PlayStation 6. But I will say this, they're already looking pretty decent on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Okay, you try to compare any of the games that have dedicated updates using PSSR 2.0 to the base PS5, and you'll see a huge difference. I'm looking at Pan Am right now, and the shadows on her skin and on her clothing, and when you're in the car with her, you just see such a huge difference in comparison. And this is what they were showing off on the PC side when Cyberpunk first came out. But what's different between then and now is the AI upscaling and how it has basically matured since 2019 or 2020. And so what PlayStation is doing is they're taking the best parts of previously introduced PC technologies while bringing it up to par with the modern age and doing it in a way that is fit for the big screen, that isn't introducing any input lag, because you're actually getting real frames. Okay, and with that, I gotta say, it's a huge win, y'all. It's a huge win. This update is the update of all the games that I own, is the one that I've been waiting for, and I must say, it's living up to its expectation. And I'm not done with Night City. I'm saying good night right here. I'm saying good luck, but I'm not done with Night City. Take a brief look at a direct comparison as we're going in this car ride with Pan Am. So right now we're using the Ray Trace Pro mode. Okay, we're gonna bump it down to the regular Ray Trace mode. Keep an eye on the shadows in the car, how it lightens up, because now we're using baked lighting. Going up to performance mode, even more simplistic. Smooth frame rates though, looks really good. Ray Trace Pro mode, this is actually played on a 4K 60 television display, and so you'll be getting better performance if you have a 120 Hz display, because you'll be getting at least 10 extra frames. Okay, I also play this on a 1440p monitor, which does support the 40 Hertz, basically this consistency with the frame rate. But as you can see right here, this looks good. And it's very playable even at 40 FPS. I think for a single player game, that's perfectly fine. And I think that maybe perhaps CD Projekt Red can bump it up a little bit more, maybe even get better frame rates with all these features enabled if they go with a lower resolution. But this is still a really good balance between everything, and it plays out just fine. And man, it looks good on a big screen. You got to see it to believe it. PSSR 2.0 is doing major justice for this console. Cyberpunk is looking better than ever on console, and I'm telling you right now, it's eons better than anything else that is available in the market right now that is built for the screen in the living room. To be able to sit on the couch, throw in that controller, pop on the game, get that quick resume going. I mean, you just can't beat it. It's top notch. Now, this is towards the end of the game, actually the literal ending of the game. But you've had 5 years to play this game, alright? So no excuses. If you're watching it now, the spoiler is not even need to be said, right, at this point. Because most of the people watching this stuff probably have already played through the game. And so I'm just using footage from where I'm at in the game. And maybe perhaps we'll go back to Embers and try to do a different route and try to see what other crazy endings we can get. But this is the one that I kind of left off on, and was the decision that I made. But this opens up some interesting questions for what the sequel could be. And at the very same time, it's very parallel, because it's asking a very similar question about PlayStation in general. Going out into the sunset on a high note, off of a win. I mean, you can't ask for better, right? V here, taking the dub, getting the Soul Killer implemented by Alt to get the job done and remove Johnny from his conscience. Who knows what the hell could happen in Cyberpunk 2. Maybe perhaps Johnny can come back and they'll try to pick one of these endings as canon. I feel like maybe this could be the canon ending if they decide to do that. Or maybe do some crazy shit where, depending on which ending you get, you just continue where that goes. But I highly doubt that would actually happen. Now, taking a look, again, seeing everything enabled, the ray trace shadows and everything like that, it really comes together with one well put image. And this is how Cyberpunk was always meant to be played. When I first played this game, I had it on PS5, but I also had it on PC with a 2070 Super, and it was not able to get consistent frames above 40 FPS with all the ray tracing enabled, and you would still have to compromise on maybe disabling specific RT features. It looks like right here we have a whole plethora of RT features that are enabled in the 2 ray tracing modes: reflection, shadows, lighting. It just comes together with one well put image, and I gotta say that CD Projekt Red has got the job done, and can't wait to see what they have in store next. Take it easy, y'all.